couple of days ago, Scott Morrison announced the government is dropping its previous push to increase the pension age to 70, and that the pension age will remain at 67. Now, that was greeted with plenty of apparent approval, at least on the ABC Goldman Murray Facebook page, and via texts and calls, with a number of people saying it should actually be lowered to 65 or even 60. However, not everybody agrees with those sentiments. Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm says we just can't afford it and that we must stay on course to lift the pension age to 70. David Leyonhjelm, good morning.
Good morning.
So increase the pension age to 70. Give us more of your reasoning here.
Yes, as you said in your introduction, we basically can't afford it. The population is getting older, and the number of people who are working and paying tax, who are therefore funding age pensions, is getting smaller as a percentage of the population, and the load on them and other taxpayers is just getting too great. I think the age pension is now costing us $40-odd billion a year. The problem, there are a lot of reasons why it's bad policy apart from just unaffordability. We are all living longer, we're all living healthier, and we can work longer. And the idea that you should give up just because you reach a certain stage in your life or a certain age in your life, I think it's a bit offensive.
Fair enough, but the Prime Minister himself did say that the necessity was no longer there. I mean, that was his reasoning when he made the announcement. And he was the Treasurer, so we would hope that he would know about these things. Is he misunderstanding his previous portfolio?
Well, he's counting his chickens before they're hatched. I mean, we've had 11 years of deficits now, and they're forecasting that we will finally end our deficit next year. So he's saying, oh, well, now that we can forecast coming out of deficit, therefore we don't have to increase the pension age because we can now afford to pay pensions to people who are 67, 68, 69.
Well, if that's wrong, what's wrong with? Oh, sorry, if that's correct, what's wrong with that strategy?
Well, it's not true, and in any case, if you're a pensioner, I've met many pensioners who feel as if the pension is too low, so they don't exactly live high on the hog. So if you've got more people with money to go around those people, they'll all receive less. If you want to be more generous to pensioners, then there should be fewer of them. And the other aspect of it that I think is important is that if you keep working, you live longer. It's a well-known fact. If you retire and you don't have anything particular to do, the likelihood is you will die earlier. So it's actually conducive to long life and staying active and getting things done in your life is one of the outcomes of workforce.
Okay, well, on our Facebook page and on air, we've had people that have made their own suggestions, of course, increased, and some saying that people have worked and they've paid taxes for their whole lives, and that the pension is one of the things that your taxes are paying for. So when you look at it that way, that does seem to make sense as well. What do you say to people with that view?
This is a common idea that you've paid taxes, therefore you're owed a pension. It's never been the case in Australia that we've had an accumulation system for pensions. They do in New Zealand and they do in the UK and some other countries. Australia's never had that system.
But does it matter whether that system's in place? You've paid your tax, and that's what taxes pay for, a whole range of services.
And you're not paying taxes anymore once you quit the workforce. Other people's taxes are what...
Yeah, but that's not the point. You're paying them while you're in the workforce, and that's one of the things you are paying for, the welfare system.
Yes, that's right. So the question then is, okay, so I'm just tired of working. So therefore I want to retire, and other people can now pay me their taxes to support my life.
Well, that's not the only circumstance. You're making one circumstance there. For a lot of people, there just isn't any work there.
Well, in that case, they receive New Start, and if they're physically unable to work, there's disability support pensions as well. So we're not talking about people having no money and no options.
Well, a lot less money on New Start, though. A lot less money on New Start. I mean, that's one of the things that people criticise about this whole plan, that it's just by stealth a way of paying people a lower pension by forcing them onto New Start.
Yeah, well, that's true, and perhaps there is an argument for bringing those two payments closer into alignment with each other. I think most people on a pension, as I said earlier, aren't particularly well off anyway. They don't feel as if they're getting paid all that much money. Disability support pensions, of course, do pay more than that. And if they are unable to work, and they qualify for the disability support pension,
yeah, but it's much, much harder to qualify for disability support pensions today.
Well, that's right. So, in any case, I mean, we have the fact is that people in their 60s, late 60s, and even into their 70s, in increasing numbers, well and truly able to work. Look at the situation with the presidential race in America: Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but you're talking about quite wealthy people there, and I mean, let's be blunt and honest. Most senior politicians are very wealthy people who have quite different lives from many ordinary people. And Ron makes that point here. He says, depends on your profession. Imagine if you are a bricklayer where you're working physically. There's no way you're going to work until you're over 70, and that would apply to a lot of labour-based jobs, wouldn't it?
Yes, it does, and that was my point, that if you can't work because your skill is in physical work and you won't cope with it anymore, that's why we have disability support pension.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a disability. It just means that you're too old now to be doing bricklaying. You'd have to do something else. Yeah,
well, if they can do something else, they should do something else. In fact, if they do something else, they're likely to live longer.
But if you've been a bricklayer up to the age of 60, what are you going to transfer to after that?
Oh, I think that's a little arrogant. You're suggesting that...
Well, it's a question. It's simply a question. And I mean, we have to be able to ask these questions without being labelled as arrogant. I think it's a fair question, isn't it?
Yeah, well, sure it is. But there's plenty of other things. Bricklayers are not stupid. They're capable of doing all sorts of other things.
Well, I'm not saying they're stupid. We're just simply... Because one of the criticisms we hear about this is the jobs just aren't there. But we'll have to leave it there because we're going to hit the 9 o'clock news. David Leyonhjelm, thank you very much for being with us and just giving us your reasoning on what you're suggesting.
Thank you.
David Leyonhjelm is the Liberal Democrats Senator.